Hello, welcome to this lesson where we're going to look at outliers, gaps and clusters. These are different shapes that we might see in our data, and they mean and influence different things. Before we look at that, we're going to quickly look at our dot plots below, and we're going to use them to understand these terms. So with our dot plots, quickly going over what a dot plot should include, we need to have a title down the bottom, which is what we're measuring. So here we have number of siblings, and then along this axis we need all of these numbers. So we've got here the numbers 0 to 7. Now these should all also be equally spaced. If you're doing this on a piece of paper, you should be using a ruler and making sure that they are equally spaced. Then on top we need to have dots, and these dots should be in straight lines, and mine are a bit crooked because I'm writing on a board, but they should be in very straight lines. They should also be in lines this way. So you shouldn't mix a whole ton of dots like this and then go 1, 2, 3 in your next column. They need to line up, and you can see that these dots all line up as we go up. And that's important because it shows us the height. Whereas here we have more in this column than this one, but it doesn't look like that. So that's quickly what dot plots are, and you hopefully have seen these before. We're talking about outliers, gaps and clusters in this lesson. And I'll start by talking about clusters. Clusters are when we have a whole ton of our data sitting in a similar position. So it's all being pulled together. And we'll see a shape that's like a bump in that area. And here we have this cluster. We have all of this data in one spot. So this is where we have a lot of our data that's been grouped together. This is important because in this one we have two clusters. We have a cluster here, and we have another cluster here. And I'll draw the shape again. So we have two clusters. It's important because we can see that there's two sort of things happening here. You don't need to think too much about that, but in future years we'll look at why clusters are important. At the moment you pretty much just have to identify them. Next we will talk about a gap. So a gap is just a space where there's not many values. You can see here there's a bit of a gap here, and here we've got another value out there, but there's another gap. So this is a space between clusters. Finally, we have an outlier. An outlier is just one value or two values that are a decent distance away from most of the data. So in this one, we don't have any outliers, but here, this value here at 7, there's nothing from this space. So this one here would be called an outlier. So that's a value, or values, but it's not going to be something like this many, just a few, and that's a bracket, sorry. So values that are far right, so they're values that are far away from most of the other values. Now, outliers are very important, and we're going to talk about these in class because they can affect our measures of center. And we need to use certain ones depending on what we want to understand, and one thing that impacts what we use is an outlier. For example, if I was to find the mean of the values 1, 1, 1, and let's go 97, to make it easy, if we find the mean, we're going to go 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3 plus 97, we get 100, divided by the number of values there, and there's 4. So we're going to get a mean of 25. Now in this case, we're going to have a lot of values here, and then 1 all the way over there. And the number 25, which is here, doesn't really help us understand the data. Instead, here we might want to use something like the median. So here we go 1, 2, so we tick off, remember, and then we get to our middle. Looks like a face. We had our two middle values as 1s, so we find the average, so we get 1. So the median would be 1. And in this case, that's a lot more useful because most of our data is down here where our ones are, and we've got this random outlier of 97. Or we could use mode in that case as well because we have a lot of values there. But these are some things that we're going to be talking about and wrestling with in class as well. I hope that's made sense. If you have any questions, please bring them to me. Thank you.